Hello guys, got a Nissan in the house that got a problem. The customer complaint here is that the AC blow cold sometimes, blow warm sometimes. And funny times, it blow warm air when driving. I've never heard about this kind of problem before. Most car problem that I've seen AC problem is the blow cold, more cold when in motion, but this one just did the reverse. The car blow cold when at idle, then warm air when it's driving fast. So I've been trying to diagnose it. The first thing which I'm looking at when I was diagnosing it was there was some sort of a poor airflow within the system, and that is just something which you need to go ahead and clean up the air filter. Then after that, I came back again, and in this time I'm seeing a different face. And you know the good side here, the funny side here is that when you touch the suction line, it's extremely cold. And for most of you guys who knows the symptoms when the suction line is extremely cold, is that the expansion valve is working fine, and that I overrule the expansion valve out of the equation. The next thing which I'm looking at here is the pressure within the compressor. Is it consistent? So I'm seeing the high pressure readings vibrating, which is showing some sort of not having a sufficient oil lubricant running inside it right there. And while doing so, I decided to inject some few ml of oil into the system, and when I injected it, it normalizes. The high side no longer vibrates. So let me start the car and show you so you participate and see what I'm seeing. So I'm gonna go ahead and start up the car and turn on the AC. Here we go. First when it starts, okay, it's blowing cold now. So let's go ahead and look at what the manifold gauge set is telling us. As a service technician here, you can see the pressure on the high side. On the low side, just like I told you guys, there was no more vibration, but I want you to look at it critically. Can you see that? Everything that you're seeing here counts. You must analyze it and understand it. And here, a very good normal analytics for this very movement which we're seeing here is that everything is normal, right? And if you touch here, it's extremely cold to touch. Now this makes it much more harder to actually diagnose exactly what is causing the problem. Because in as much as the suction line is supplying good, in as much as the suction line is wearing really good and cold to touch, we are clear and hot that the thermostatic expansion valve is doing its job. Now the next phase which I'm going to be looking at here is we have to go deeper, we have to go advanced to be able to understand what is creating the mess inside the system here. Why? Because when in motion, no one is here to be able to hold it, to hold this suction line and know if there is any decrease. And here, the fan speed is just on because there is a pressure within the system. So everything seems to be normal as it's supposed to. The reading, everything is normal. Now for the refrigerant, it dropped previously from 200. I added some fuel refrigerant inside it. The system cooling improved, but yet this same problem has not gone away. It hasn't disappeared. So that really got me scratching my head and really trying to figure out exactly what could be the problem. When it talks about the fan runs good, and at this point I have to look at the radiators and look at it and see what is going on the inside. Based on what I'm seeing on the gauge right now, I can't be able to say that the compressor is bad because the pressures is where they are supposed to be, and I'm seeing every indication that the system is working great. But if not for the fact that the customer who owns this car has actually given it to me to test drive, which I actually did, then I'll be doubting that there is something that is actually really wrong with the car. The polling filter has been well cleaned. The condenser is not defective. The expansion valve is doing its job. So the last test which we need to do right now to actually know which is how consistent is the thermistor inside the dashboard, inside the evaporator is keeping up. Does it short cycle? Is there any short cycling? Because as we've been on here, there have never been any time that the system short cycle. Though previously all those while it has been making some short cycling which have solved the problem, but now we are noticing some little fluctuation here. Slight fluctuation. It goes to 200 psi, it comes back. You can see it right there. So only a seasoned mechanic is going to understand what is going on inside here, like me. And in this case, this is shocking me for the first time, because literally there is no any AC issue which I have not solved about 10 years ago to this very moment. Newer development, newer issues are coming up, but I'm still good at solving them. Now here, most of the times what we don't even expect is what is going to be creating this kind of mess inside the system. And so one has to look outside the box to be able to know exactly what the problem could be. So in those cases, the compressor could be the problem, but I'm not seeing any pressure dropping here. So if suppose the pressure is dropping on the high side and on the low side, or the high side is dropping and the low side is normal, then I can actually attribute it to something. But here you can see the movement which I'm talking about here. So which means my last verdict on this very case here could be that the compressor lost pressure sometimes. As I'm seeing the high side dropping, it drops, it goes back. So when it goes back, that is when the compression increases, right? And on the low side, we're not so much seeing a lot of movement here. And the reason why this is possible is because the compressor which is on this car, equipped on this car, is unusual compressor, and therefore it should have unusual symptoms. I don't know if you guys are understanding, getting the feeling. The compressor is equipped with this Nissan Rogue, and some other Nissan is unusual compressor. It's not the normal type of fixed displacement compressor. It's more like the screw type, and so it can have a different symptoms than other cars will never have. And that is why we're seeing this kind of a problem here, where the AC cools much better when in idle, but in motion it tends to blow warm air sometimes and blow cold air sometimes. But when it comes to evaporator, I just replaced evaporator on this car some months ago, so I don't think the evaporator can actually attribute this kind of a problem. So my last verdict on this case is that the compressor could be the problem, because first, remember I told you guys there was some sort of oil shortage on this very compressor, so I need to add some oil. So within those time, there could have been some lapses between the piston and the cylinder wall, creating some lapses which is making this motion which you're seeing here going up sometimes and come down sometimes. So that said, right now you see back on 200 psi and it's dropping. I believe that it's actually the compressor that is really acting up right now, because this is some sort of unusual compressor. So guys, this one I'm going to be leaving it If you have any further question here, be sure that you are my subscriber before asking me any question concerning this. But if you are not, kindly just move on, right? Move on to the next guy. I remain Dr. Fix. Now, if you look at that pipe very well, you're gonna be seeing the sweat that is sweating. So you know I am not trying to trick you guys, right? Okay guys, catch you guys later on the next one. This is Dr. Fix. Bye.